Go inside the studio with the Ricky Harris Media Podcast. Here's your host, Ricky Harris.
Welcome back to the Ricky Harris Media Podcast. This is episode 8. I greatly I figured I would leave that in there. See, it's not as it seems. I do record this show a lot like you record a movie. So there are some outtakes. I just got tongue-tied. See, I did it again. Ricky Harris Media Podcast, episode 8. Whoa, did you hear that? Jeez, what a mess. Take 3. And action. All right, so while we're on this subject, I want to talk about punch and roll. Why not? Wasn't planning on talking about that, but punch and roll is an editing technique that I use on this show. It is really good for recording very long form narration, like audiobooks, narrating YouTube videos, which is semi my specialty now. It is a great technique. And if you're really paying attention, you notice the edit right there. So basically the way it works is I say a line, say a sentence, say a paragraph, get as far as you can without any flubs. You know, anyone that has done any kind of acting, any kind of stage, especially when you've got like 100 or so people just staring at you, yeah, the butterflies start to get, when you're in the moment, yeah, you get butterflies. With live, that's how it is. But when you're doing pre-recorded, a technique that will save you a lot of time is called punch and roll. So basically, let me put this picture in your mind. Picture a tape machine, or it can be a cassette tape. You got your take-up reel on the right, you got your supply reel on the left. So your tape is traveling from left to right. So you're recording. Oh, messed up. So what you do, if this were a tape, you would back it up and find the spot where you started to mess up. Back up a little bit, start recording. You actually tape over your mistake. And you can just keep doing that until you get through the whole thing. And then what do you have when you're done? You have a edited master. Well, an edited tracked recording. I know mastering, it could be good enough for a master at that point, but you may want to do some final tweaking on it. Take little bits and pieces out, ums and farts or burps or whatever. Go in there and snip those out. What a time saver. And again, like we talked about last week, a sanity saver. Yeah, I guess so. Save your sanity. While we're on the subject of audio, I do want to talk about how I recorded the intro song. I do have my jazz bass sitting right up here in my lap, and I will play just the bass part. And here's something that happens, and it's going to happen. And sometimes this happens, like with me, it happened because I didn't know exactly how I wanted to compose the song until I actually started to play parts of it. So the very first thing I actually recorded, it's a little bit backwards, but it's what I'm comfortable with doing. I actually recorded the electric guitar part. I'll play all this individually so you can hear it. And then I came back and played the drums. Then I played the bass very last. So it's a very kind of, bouncing around approach. Typically, I say typically, there's no rules to this, of course. You will go in and record, say it's a band, a traditional rock band. You'll come in the studio, you'll track your drums and your bass, usually together. Then you'll come back and bring in your guitar players. They'll play to that. And then your guitar players will come in and play some solos, punching those in, playing, kind of playing along sometimes in audition. And then when that measure hits, just wail on it. Track your solos. And then the very last thing, tracking vocals. So that's kind of the typical order. I don't know. I've played bass instruments for the most part in my life, and I don't know. I guess I just get used to hearing all the other instruments, and I just want that first when I'm doing all this myself, my one-man band. So I guess I'll play the bass part. And this is my jazz bass. I actually recorded that intro with my precision bass, and to me, it kind of got lost in the mix. So I won't talk too much more about this, but if you hear the bass tone change in the next few episodes, I went back and re-recorded the bass part because, bass player's kind of biased. The bass player's got to hear the bass in the mix, right? That was the problem. That's what I ran into when I was composing it as I went. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna grab my P bass. That'll work. And then the guitars covered up the bass. I mean, you can hear it, of course, especially if you have a subwoofer, you have some really bassy headphones. You can hear it, but you can't hear the attack and the grunge of the bass that I wanted. The jazz bass gives me that, though. Here, listen, this is the direct signal. A little bit sloppy of a, and I kind of would have put some little jazz in there. Yeah, so there we go. That's the bass part that I want now. Yeah, that's one of those things where a project is never finished. It never really gets finished, and you hear the little hum there. Yeah, these are single coil pickups. I'm really happy with that's all the hum that I have, though. Listen. Yeah, that's all I got. I'm not going to play the rest of it live, but yeah, this is the individual tracks. So now we're in stereo. Ooh, the bass is not in stereo. I guess I could make it in stereo. It'd be a little bit strange. That's another time. I need to add some reverb to the bass. It sounds like the bass is in a tunnel. Yeah, we can do that. But anyway, here is the guitar part. So this is what I was playing along to. And if memory serves me correctly, I think I did use a click track. I think I had it in my headphones. Maybe. I guess if you turn it up loud enough, you might be able to hear the click track. Here is the heavy guitar part. Whoa. Okay, so as you can tell, that is a really loud guitar, and that was kind of the point. I wanted to make a in-your-face loud guitar. So the way I did that, I don't know if I did that on purpose. So it's kind of obvious because I want this show to be kind of a nuts and bolts of production. You can hear that's actually two different takes there. Normally, you would trim all that off at the beginning, but once it gets going, it sounds like one guitar, but this really awesome studio echo. No effects. All that is I played one performance on the left channel, went back, now that I've got that rhythm down, and I played it like 30 times to get the rhythm down, so it's basically just baked into my brain, in my fingers. Flipped my pan knob over and recorded the right side, right along with the left channel. That way you have two individual performances, and what that gives you, unless you're like a robot, even if you were a robot, you do have acoustic, because I was miking a cab. you do have acoustic changes. I mean, everything is not a complete constant. So you're going to get a natural stereo kind of reverby effect. And not only are you going to get a good stereo reverby effect, it makes it sound thicker and it makes it sound louder, especially when you're listening to it in stereo. Even in listening into it in mono, it makes it a little bit louder, because instead of having all of your peaks and valleys kind of happening at the exact same time, let's go back to alternating current school. Instead of having all your peaks and valleys happening at the exact same time, you've got a little bit of variance. You have peaks from the other channel, the left channel, kind of happening in between the left and vice versa. So you have more average power, more average voltage, which translates into a louder guitar. Oh, I love that effect. The loud guitar. I really wish I could say that I invented that technique. No, that's actually a very classic technique, and how I first found out about it is right here up on YouTube. This show is now on YouTube, by the way, on Ricky Harris Media in the podcast section. Ultimate Studios Incorporated out of Los Angeles. Charlie demonstrated this technique, and he uses it on all of his recordings, and apparently it's a very classic technique. Brilliant. The Beatles did this with vocals. I think they did it with guitars too, and I know they did it with vocals. It's a very classic technique with vocals. Double tracking, not necessarily stereo, but you do a performance. You go through the 4 minutes of the song, let's say. Let's say you've got a 4-minute song. You go through the whole thing, and then you back up your tape or back up your recording, or in the DAW, you just go click, click, and start back at the beginning, and you just do another take. I mean, if you got the whole day, just keep doing those takes. Find two that are very similar, and of course, two takes that you're very happy with. Combine them, gives you a thicker sound, and it can add some effect too. It can give a little bit of reverb sound. Now, let's back up even further. There's lots of reasons why I got into recording. I'll say that the early days of recording to cassette tape, the early days of making these little home movies for my grandparents to ship 250 miles north. Yeah. But, in the midst of all that, my best friend is a percussionist. Don't let him fool you. He's very good on the drum kit. He's been the same way I've been a bassist majority of my life. He's been a percussionist a majority of his life. And it got me really interested in recording drums. And I've heard this long before, and a lot of audio engineers will agree, that is one of the more time-consuming and difficult things to do, because you're dealing with an ensemble of very different frequency instruments and a lot of different microphones. So there's a lot of variables there, and it can end up sounding like you're hitting a trash can if it's not set up right, or the room's not right, or the mic's not right, the placement's not right, the drum head's not right. There's a lot of variables. So I cheated a little bit. I was still playing it. I still am hitting the pads as if it were a real drum kit, but that's actually an electronic drum kit. Let's listen to that just by itself. That is a Roland TD7, I believe is the model name for that. It is a Roland drum kit, and wow. I mean, especially when you play it by itself, yeah, it does sound a little bit electronic, but man, on that acoustic, or it has several acoustic drum kit settings, but that's really convincing. I really like it. The great thing about it, too, is it won't annoy your neighbors, or if you have people that live with you. Oh my God, I feel bad for those that live with drummers playing the acoustic drum set. A drum set so loud. So that's nice. You can actually play with headphones, and what you hear in the room is just some tapping, some really light tapping, and you're definitely not going to hear it outside. An acoustic drum set, yeah, you're going to hear that outside. So loud. So there we go. There's the breakdown of that mix. Very simple. I will say the hardest part is getting the guitar sound that I wanted, and of course playing 2 takes. That I actually did that kind of an old school way. I've kind of stepped back in technology a little bit, and it helps with my creative flow. I've noticed that with video production too. You might be scratching your head thinking when you listen to the last episode, you're like, you're probably thinking to yourself, this dude is working way harder than he needs to synchronize video. I know. But it helps with the creative flow. It kind of forces you to slow down and really analyze what you see. And I'm doing that with audio too. And so I did that kind of an old school way. I recorded my left channel, played it. So that's just playing against a click. I think it was a click track. I may not have used a click track. I may have just played it so many times I didn't need a click track. So I got a good satisfying take. I want to say that took about 5 takes. So I was like, okay, I think I got it. Now I ran it back through the board. This is all analog. Well, recorded digitally, and then I used a digital player. I think I used anyway, it doesn't matter. I used some digital player. I played it back through the board, and I had it set up on my recorder to record the main outs in stereo. So I had the playback pod or the pan knob turned to left, and then I had my live guitar on the right. So I just kept playing them together. That took about 3 more takes, and then just playing along with it. Well, now I'm just trash that take. Okay, I like that one, and there we go. All the processing was done with effects pedals, a very classic effects pedal, distortion pedal, the Boss DS1. What a staple of 90s grunge rock right there, the Boss DS1. So I ran that actually through a bass cab. That is a bass cab with the back taken off of it. It's a little bit quirky. I mean, I'm a kind of a quirky, weird guy anyway, but I wanted to have my guitar set up, for the most part, really out of the ordinary and strange. So I ran it through a bass amp. And I recorded the cab with it's a microphone similar to a SM57, but it's actually a drum mic. It's a tom mic, but it looks like it has the exact same element as a SM57. It's a Shure mic. I'm pretty sure it does. So that was my guitar sound. Really simple. I'm just going to leave all this stuff in. That was a phone call, obviously. Oh, wow. So, there's about, 10 segments stitched together for this episode. I greatly appreciate you guys and gals listening to this episode. I do want to talk a little bit more about what I talked about last week, kind of my approach to problem solving when a project needs to be done and I'm working with a consumer grade editing software, consumer action cameras, a prosumer video camera, my little cinema camera. It's a Canon XA1, by the way. I'm sorry, a Canon XA11, if you want to look this up. I don't think it's being made anymore, but you can get similar cameras. I love this camera. Anyway, so that's kind of the process you can go through, some workarounds. Yeah, it can be a little painful, but if you enjoy doing this, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and it depends on how much time you want to put into it. And you can really make something awesome, especially anymore. Like I was talking about the price differences between those good cameras. I mean, it's like 50% off and double the picture quality. Now it's 4 times the picture quality with 4K. Wow, this is awesome. But Final Cut Pro, I've been looking and getting that. I would love to hear your ideas on Final Cut Pro. The thing I like about it does not have a subscription model, which lots of software has gone to. That's what I like about Reaper. It doesn't. It's a one-time fee, $300. And then Final Cut Pro has a very simple way of doing multiple cameras. You select multiple cameras, and it basically puts everything into your timeline. You can run through it, and you can kind of switch cameras just like you were if you were at an actual hardware switcher. Wow. It's already synchronized and you're just kind of bouncing between it. So while we're on the subject of multiple cameras, I did shoot that video and it's on my YouTube channel. This is a steam train, big boy. This is one of the world's largest steam engines and is still running to this day. And they're taking it on a tour of the West and the Midwest, Union Pacific's big boy. Actually, this was a 4-camera shoot. 2 iPhones, my cinema camera, and an action camera. And I put all these together. And this one was really not that bad because you know what you have? You have a train horn to synchronize everything to. You have a built-in take slate. Thank you, train horn. Thank you, steam horn. So check out that video, big boy. And it's on my YouTube channel, which is Ricky Harris Media, RICKY Radio. That is my Twitter. Ricky Radio is my Twitter. And YouTube is Ricky Harris Media. Check that out. Oh, and again, that was not just me. I was running my cinema camera, but 2 friends of mine went out there with me, and we had a blast. They were running their individual iPhones, and we kind of put our heads together on how the best way to shoot this, kind of document this tour that it ran through in Texas, College Station, Texas. Oh, that was a fun shoot, and it turned out really good. I was really happy with how it turned out. The camera's a little shaky in moments because, you know, I was traveling by air. Got some really cheap tickets on Frontier. Traveling by air, I'm not going to bring my 20-pound massive tripod with me. That's a bit silly. So I handheld all this, and I put my camera on. It's not the most aggressive stabilization. I didn't want it to look unnatural, so I think I put it on like setting 2. So it is providing a little bit of motion stabilization, and that camera does a good job with that. One thing, if you're really paying attention, this is really nitpicking it. You can see, and you can see this on your iPhone, your Android phone, how you know how much work the motion stabilization is doing is if you have any kind of smudges on the lens or any kind of lens flare. The lens flare will not be it will not be synchronized with the motions of the camera. That's one dead giveaway. In this case, it was steam on the lens, and you can see the steam kind of moving around. You're like, wait a minute. Isn't the lens fixed to the camera? Well, it's the stabilization software in there that's actually looking at the movements and kind of nulling it out. Cool stuff. And I noticed the newer GoPros actually have a gimbal inside, and this technology is just so awesome. It does make editing a lot less painless, a lot less painful, more painless. And wow, it's really great. We live in great times as far as technology goes because it allows your artistic touch, your artistic mind to really come out. But again, it is important to stop, slow down. Sometimes go back and, even if you're not going to use this recording, go back and do it the old school way. Take slate, multiple cameras running, no time code. And that's kind of the way I do it anyway. So I have the luxury of time code. And it really does kind of force you to stop, think, and really make something awesome. Thanks everybody for listening. We are on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeart, and check out the YouTube, of course, Ricky Harris Media, all one word. That is Ricky Harris Media. Thanks everybody for listening. See you guys and gals next week. Later. Bye.